The year was 1958, and Britain was about to change forever. Not because of politics or war, but because of 8 miles of concrete and tarmac cutting through the Lancashire countryside. The Preston Bypass would become Britain's first motorway, and it would do something nobody expected. It would kill off some of the most famous truck brands in British history. For decades, British lorries had been built for a different world. The winding A roads of the 1940s and 50s, where 30 miles per hour was considered fast, and stopping for tea was part of the job. These trucks were rugged, simple machines designed for short hauls between towns, not the high-speed, long-distance runs that motorways would soon demand. The transformation didn't happen overnight. But by the time the motorway network stretched across Britain in the 1970s, the trucking industry looked completely different. Household names like Albion, Seddon and Guy had either vanished or been swallowed up by larger companies. Meanwhile, foreign manufacturers who understood what the new roads required began flooding the British market. This is the story of how one new road changed everything, and why some of Britain's most beloved truck makers couldn't adapt fast enough to survive. Before the Preston Bypass opened its gates in December 1958, British roads told a different story. The A roads that connected Britain's cities and towns were narrow, winding affairs that had evolved from centuries-old cart tracks and coaching routes. These roads demanded a specific kind of lorry, and British manufacturers had spent decades perfecting machines for exactly these conditions. The typical British truck of the 1950s was a solid, straightforward machine. Companies like Leyland, AEC, and Foden dominated the market with vehicles that prioritised reliability over speed. These lorries featured powerful but slow-revving engines, designed to pull heavy loads up steep hills at a steady pace. Their top speed rarely exceeded 50 miles per hour, and that was perfectly adequate for roads where traffic moved much slower. The cab design reflected this philosophy. Comfort was secondary to durability. Drivers sat on hard seats with minimal suspension, enduring the constant vibration of solid axles and leaf springs. Sound insulation was virtually non-existent, meaning the roar of the engine and the rumble of the road were constant companions on every journey. But this harsh environment was accepted as part of the job. British truck manufacturers had built their reputations on engineering excellence and local service. Leyland, based in Lancashire, had grown from its early days building steam wagons into one of Europe's largest commercial vehicle producers. AEC, the Associated Equipment Company, supplied buses and trucks from their Southall factory in London. Foden, the family-owned company from Sandbach in Cheshire, was famous for their steam wagons before transitioning to diesel power. These companies knew their customers intimately. They understood that British hauliers needed trucks that could navigate tight city streets, climb the hills of Scotland and Wales, and operate reliably with minimal maintenance. Speed was never the priority because speed was never required. The road network itself reinforced these design choices. The Great North Road, the primary route connecting London to Scotland, passed through dozens of towns and villages where traffic ground to a crawl. The journey from London to Edinburgh could take 12 hours or more, with frequent stops for fuel, food and rest. Under these conditions, a truck that could cruise comfortably at 70 miles per hour would have been pointless. But change was coming, driven by a visionary civil engineer named James Drake, the Lancashire County Surveyor, who relentlessly championed the creation of the Preston Bypass. The idea of a motorway network wasn't new. Germany had been building autobahns since the 1930s, and American interstate highways were already transforming long-distance transport across the United States. But Britain had resisted, partly due to cost, and partly due to a belief that existing roads were adequate. The Preston Bypass changed that perspective overnight. When the 8-mile stretch of dual carriageway opened to traffic on December 5th, 1958, it created something Britain had never seen before. A road where traffic could flow at 60 miles per hour without interruption, where trucks could maintain steady speeds for miles at a time, and where the stop-start nature of traditional road transport was eliminated. The immediate impact was dramatic. Journey times between Preston and the surrounding areas dropped by half. Fuel consumption improved as trucks could operate in their most efficient speed range, instead of constantly accelerating and braking. Most importantly, the economics of long-distance haulage suddenly looked very different. Haulage companies quickly recognised the potential. If motorways could be extended across Britain, it would revolutionise freight transport. Goods could move from London to Manchester, Birmingham to Glasgow, or any other combination of major cities at unprecedented speed and efficiency. But this new world would demand very different trucks. The Preston Bypass served as a testing ground for what these new trucks would need to be. Traditional British lorries, designed for stop-start A-road operation, struggled on the continuous high-speed runs the motorway enabled. Their engines, optimised for low-speed torque, lacked the power to maintain 60 miles per hour while carrying full loads. Their braking systems, adequate for occasional stops from 30 miles per hour, overheated when repeatedly slowing from motorway speeds. Most critically, their comfort levels became a serious issue. On traditional roads, poor suspension and high noise levels were tolerable because journeys were broken up by frequent stops and slower speeds. But on the motorway, drivers found themselves in these harsh conditions for hours at a time, leading to fatigue that affected both safety and productivity. The writing was on the wall. As Britain committed to building a comprehensive motorway network following the Preston Bypass's success, the commercial vehicle industry would need to evolve or be left behind. The 1960s brought rapid expansion of Britain's motorway network. The M1, connecting London to the Midlands, opened in 1959. The M6, M4 and other major routes followed throughout the decade. By 1970, Britain had over 600 miles of motorway, fundamentally changing the landscape of commercial transport. This new infrastructure demanded trucks with capabilities that simply hadn't existed before. Engine power became crucial, not just for acceleration, but for maintaining high cruising speeds with heavy loads. The old philosophy of low-revving, high-torque engines had to give way to more sophisticated power plants that could operate efficiently at sustained high speeds. Transmission technology also required advancement. Traditional British trucks used simple manual gearboxes with 4 or 5 forward gears, perfectly adequate for A-road driving. But motorway operation revealed the limitations of these systems. Drivers needed more gear ratios to optimize engine performance across the wider speed range, and eventually automatic transmissions became essential for managing the constant speed variations of motorway driving. Braking systems underwent the most dramatic transformation. The drum brakes that had served adequately on slower roads couldn't cope with the heat generated by repeated high-speed stops. Air brake systems, common on continental European trucks, but rare in Britain, became essential. Disc brakes, initially viewed as an expensive luxury, proved necessary for safe motorway operation. Some British manufacturers rose to meet these challenges. Leyland, the largest of the domestic producers, invested heavily in developing new engine families designed for sustained high-speed operation. Their 500 series engines, introduced in the mid-1960s, offered the power and durability needed for motorway work. The company also pioneered ergonomic cab designs that prioritised driver comfort without sacrificing the ruggedness British operators demanded. AEC took a different approach, focusing on technological innovation. Their V8 engine, launched in 1968, was one of the most powerful truck engines available anywhere in the world. With proper development, it could have provided the foundation for a new generation of high-performance British trucks. The company also experimented with advanced features like power steering and air suspension that would later become industry standards. Foden, the smaller family-owned company, carved out a niche by combining traditional British build quality with selected modern features. Their trucks maintained the reputation for durability that had made the brand famous, while incorporating enough new technology to remain competitive in the changing market. But these efforts, while technically competent, faced a fundamental challenge. The British market was small compared to the continental European market, limiting the economies of scale available to domestic manufacturers. Meanwhile, European companies like Mercedes-Benz, Volvo and Scania had access to larger home markets, and had been dealing with high-speed road transport for years before Britain built its first motorway. The result was a competitive disadvantage that became more pronounced as the motorway network expanded and customer expectations evolved. The 1970s marked the beginning of the end for many traditional British truck brands. As the motorway network reached maturity and long-distance haulage became the dominant form of freight transport, operators increasingly turned to foreign manufacturers who had been building motorway-capable trucks from the beginning. Mercedes-Benz entered the British market with trucks that had been refined by years of operation on German autobahns. These vehicles offered power, comfort, and reliability that many British trucks simply couldn't match. The build quality was exceptional, the cabs were quiet and comfortable, and the engines delivered the sustained high-speed performance that motorway operation demanded. Volvo brought Scandinavian engineering excellence to Britain, with trucks designed for the harsh operating conditions of Northern Europe. Their emphasis on driver comfort and safety resonated with operators who were beginning to recognise that happy, rested drivers were more productive and safer drivers. Scania arrived with a modular approach, allowing operators to specify exactly the engine, transmission, and features they needed. This flexibility, paired with build quality and performance, quickly won over Britain's most demanding operators. In contrast, British manufacturers were hampered by corporate upheaval and underinvestment. Leyland, grown through a series of acquisitions, struggled to integrate its brands into a coherent range. Quality control suffered, and reliability became inconsistent, just as customers became less tolerant of downtime. AEC's promising V8 engine program was undermined by rushed development and insufficient testing. Early reliability issues damaged their reputation just as they attempted to enter the high-performance market. The damage to customer confidence proved irreversible. Smaller companies fared even worse. Albion, known for sturdy vehicles suited to Scottish conditions, lacked the resources to develop the powertrains required for modern motorway use. After being bought by Leyland in 1951, the brand finally faded in 1972. Seddon, which specialised in lightweight local delivery, was forced to merge with Atkinson in 1970 as the industry shifted toward long-distance haulage. While the Seddon-Atkinson name survived under foreign ownership, their era as an independent powerhouse was over. Guy, once a major force, saw its municipal and local haulage base shrink, leading to a decline after its 1961 acquisition by Jaguar and final closure in 1982. Even ERF, which carved a niche in the premium market through build quality, remained a small player compared to the global giants with vast development budgets. The Preston Bypass did more than improve transport. It fundamentally transformed the British trucking industry. As motorways replaced local roads, a new era emerged dominated by national operators who demanded extreme reliability, dealer networks, and standardised parts. Many traditional British manufacturers, built for a slower age, could not meet these requirements. The shift favoured foreign competitors from Sweden, Germany, and the Netherlands who had already invested in modern freight capabilities. This evolution cascaded through the supply chain. Component suppliers and a skilled workforce found their expertise obsolete. By the 1980s, Britain's motorways were dominated by international brands. Names like Albion and Seddon faded, while the last major British-owned manufacturer, ERF, was acquired by MAN in 2000 and retired by 2007. This decline carries a distinct irony. British engineering significantly shaped modern advancements, as former employees of AEC and Leyland often moved to the foreign manufacturers that displaced their original employers, bringing their experience with them.